All righty, we are live and in color. Please
Live in color.
let us know if you can hear us and we look okay. Hey, Pastor Norman.
Hey there, mom and dad.
Oh,
How's
Y'all
things
doing
in South Carolina?
rainy?
It's been raining, but now the sun's out here. The sun is
it's,
out.
it's still overcast.
Yeah. It's kind of warm here too. Let's see who's here. There's Linda. Linda Langdon. Hey, Linda.
Good
it's
afternoon,
the
and
squeaking sound I hear.
You hear a squeaking sound?
Yeah. Some poop.
That's
Yeah.
the phone.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's beeping over there.
It's hurt my ears.
There's Virginia.
Virginia Carter.
Virginia.
Dad just went yesterday to the hearing aid specialist, and she reprogrammed his old hearing aid, and he's got to wear it for 2 weeks to help retrain his brain. So he's hearing things that he hasn't heard in a long time. So you guys may see him making faces or whatever and talking about it. I just want to let you know, give you a heads up.
She got to put my business out there.
Yeah, I gotta put it out there because you're gonna show up like something's wrong, and they're gonna have to know what's going on.
His ear is being reconditioned.
Yeah,
His
yeah,
brain.
yeah. One of the things that she said yesterday is that she said we're gonna tell the brain what to do. So that's what she's doing. So we didn't purchase any new hearing aids or anything like that as of yet. She wanted to see if his brain was going to respond to the signals and if it can find its own way back to correcting it. So that's where we are. So he's hearing.
Something knocked it out of gear.
His,
She did. She knocked it out of gear the other night.
I did. Oh, okay. How did I do that?
She put the ceiling fan on high instead of low.
Oh my
But, but,
goodness.
but that's a good topic right there in itself, mom.
Oh no, it is not.
Yeah, what? No, the part about what the doctor said. I ain't talking about the other. No, that I will not touch.
Not that, right? Not that.
Touching that. I'm talking about what the doctor said.
I know it. I know it. I know it.
She
Well,
not look,
yeah. So, hey, Lady Gwen, how are you doing, sweetie?
Miss Gwen.
And there's
I need some help,
Antoinette
baby.
Green.
I need
Hey,
some
my
help, Miss Gwen.
Dear
namesake.
Sister Tony. So good to
Yeah.
see
I
you,
need
Sister
some
Tony.
help. I need some help.
Now, I don't know what we're talking about today, but we're going to talk. And let me get some of these banners and things off.
Well,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Well, hold up. Let me get everything straight here.
Get everything straight.
Yeah. Let's see. What am I doing? I done lost track because I got excited when you said you had a question. Isn't
Mhm.
that something? I think I'm ready now. I think I'm ready. Okay. All right. Go ahead. Shoot for it.
Well, like I said, what you just shared concerning what the doctor said to Dad concerning retraining his brain.
Yeah.
So when you said it instantaneously, I thought about what is that is sees the need to retrain the brain. And the reason why I say that is because the brain, of course, is the organ that pretty much send information throughout the rest of our body on how each part is supposed to function.
Uh-huh.
But again, we know that the brain is not actually the mind.
Right.
So
It's not. Right.
and so what is that again that see the needs or make mention again of the brain being retrained? Because see that is amazing to me because of course we heard in Christendom for so long about renewing the mind.
Yeah.
So it's shifting again the way that something functions.
Yeah. Well, based on what the doctor said to him yesterday, do you have your hearing aid in now? It's in
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Okay. I see you digging in your ears. So I thought maybe.
I took it out to scratch my ear.
Oh, okay. So based on what she said yesterday is the brain has, because of the deficit in the hearing, has gotten its signals crossed up. It's trying to send signals to the ear that's deaf and signals to the ear that can hear, and it's the signals are scrambled for the brain. So
Wow.
that's why it feels to him like it's coming and going. It's coming and going. And so when she reprogrammed the hearing aid, it gave the right ear the right responses to send to the brain.
She
Mhm.
put some. She
And
put a program in there.
yeah, she reprogrammed it. And so it sent the right signals to the brain so the brain could adjust itself. And that's when she said, we're going to tell the brain what to do. Because right now it's trying to fix it on its own. And she said, we're just going to tell it what to do. So she said, for 2 weeks to wear this hearing aid, she said, for a minimum of 5 hours a day. Doesn't
Mhm.
have to be doesn't have to do the whole 5 hours at one time, but to tolerate it as much as you can, rest for a while without it, and then put it back if you have to. Yesterday, after she put it in, he wore it all afternoon and
Mhm.
was pretty comfortable with it. When she first put it in, it was very loud to him, and
Mhm.
things that he had not heard in a long time that he didn't even realize he wasn't hearing. For instance, he walked in the kitchen and thought he was hearing rain, when actually what he was hearing is our old refrigerator because it's beginning to make noise. And I've been telling you that for a long time. This thing is making noise, so I don't know how much longer it's going to last. And he realized that he was hearing the refrigerator. So it's retraining the brain to pick up the signals so that it can do its, after it adjusts, it will have the right signals, and then possibly he may need a hearing aid, he may not, we don't know. So this is what we're doing.
So that is a parallel, isn't that exactly what's happening to us, dealing with the false identity, or that which we call spirit, or that which we call our true self, that are signals somehow in the midst of evolving and in our process of progression. We got our signals crossed, and now we're trying to come into alignment, into
Mhm, mhm,
catching the right signals, or
mhm,
for sake of understanding, when we talk about in uh Christendom, again, in church, we talk about hearing the voice of God,
mhm.
or better yet, I want to say the signals of God, because in all honesty, we really don't, there is no way we can identify an actual language of God speaking to
Well,
us.
it's interesting you brought that up because while we were there with the doctor yesterday, and before she did anything to the hearing aid, he began to feel her father behind her.
Wow.
I don't know if he's passed or if he's still alive. We're not sure. But he began to feel and see and hear her father behind her. And so he started to minister, not minister so much, just tell her what he was seeing and what he was saying to her. And ended up, there was a point in there where he looked, talking about dad, looked up on the wall. There was this decorative artwork that looked like a tree limb that had a bird on it. And he said, I see a tree. That was a signal to him. I see a tree. And he said, there's an apple. He said, the apple is so juicy and sweet. He said, I could take a bite of it. And and he said, I love fruit. He's talking about her dad. And at that point, she pulled up her pant leg and showed her ankle, right?
My dad was telling me about her and some part of his life that she would remember.
And that she was a daddy's girl and they were
Yeah,
very
and
close.
and the apple tree. I didn't know. See, her daddy knew. I didn't know she had a tattoo.
I was getting ready to
Oh,
tell it.
okay. Right.
When she pulled her pant leg up, she showed us a tattoo of an apple tree because
Wow.
her dad loved apples and she had a tattoo of an apple tree because
Wow.
that was her love, her symbol of her love for her dad. So,
Wow.
and then this is the reason I brought that up is this. She said to him, now I don't know how spiritual this young lady is. She's young to us, but I don't know how spiritual she is. But she said this to Dad. She said, "You need to learn to discern because," she said, "you have so much activity in and communication in your head. She said, you need to discern, is it coming from within or without?
Wow.
Now, that was to me profound for a
Very.
doctor to say to someone. But she realized that a lot of the stuff that he's hearing, some of it is physical. She said this, some of it is physical and some of it may not be physical.
Wow.
So, I mean, it was a real enlightening session with her. Very enlightening session with her. So, in response to your statement and uh, your question, the mind, not the brain, but the mind has been conditioned. Those are signals sent. All of those conditionings are signals that have been sent or placed in the mind, and this is what both basically we have lived our lives by, those signals, which are actually distorted until we come into the awareness of who we truly are, so we're not living by the mind anymore. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes all the sense in the world, and that's why I put that out there, because that is what pretty much what we're coming to understand.
Mhm.
Dealing, especially, and it's funny what Dad is dealing with, because again, in the area of, again, what we learn through a Christian doctrine and teaching when it comes to the area of the prophetic. We know, and I know for me, and of course we know there are two different types of prophets, so to speak. You have the quasi, which is the person that's very visionary, like Dad sees stuff. I mean, he instantaneous have these pictures and he sees stuff, which means he's very more on a part of having visions. Whereas with me, Nabi is the person that hears stuff spontaneous. I don't actually see a lot of stuff or have the scriptures. I talk about what I hear. And so
And
with
in the Old Testament, the prophets were all called seers. And
exactly.
and in Dad's case, he sees, but he also hears. And one of the reasons for that is his comes in so many multiple various ways, because he's kinesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
Being a kinesthetic uh, means he can receive the information through any gate.
Mm-hmm.
Any gate, all the gates are, because it basically comes through how he feels and identifies with that he sees, hears, or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly, and being a product of your ministry and your son, because there are times when I become very visionary as well, and so I
Mhm,
understand those are mediums in which information is channeled through. And
mhm,
so when you made the statement concerning what the physician said concerning discerning, I thought about immediately Hebrews chapter 5, where it talks about strong meat belonging to them that are full of age, mature, or another translation, spiritual, um, even to those who by reason have their senses exercised to
mhm.
discern. And
That's it.
so, both the
Mhm.
scripture said both good and evil. But
Yes.
when you mentioned what the doctor said, discerning what
Mhm,
signal, and see, that's
mhm,
what a lot of
mhm,
people
mhm,
are getting, because I get a lot of phone calls from people concerning they're having dreams, or they're hearing this. I had the incident that happened on Sunday while I was on the broadcast and I was ministering. Of course, we're so used to being in front of people, so it's a
mhm,
whole different um, arena now when we start uh, telling a person by, I'll say, awareness or prophetic utterance what we are seeing or hearing. And so there was a young lady name who popped up on the screen on Sunday, and when
mhm,
her name popped up on the screen, I instinctively began to tell her, I don't know why I'm seeing this, but I see light and it's hitting you in the area of your digestive system. You're having
mhm,
problems with digestion. And at the same time, I see there needs to be healing in your female parts as
mhm,
well.
mhm,
And I did, again, like I said, we're used to being in front of people. So when we would call people out and tell them that, You know, we asked them, what is this we're seeing? What is this we're hearing? And so I asked her that. I said, I do not know what I'm seeing this, but please, in the comment section, let me know when I'm picking up. And Dad gonna laugh because I always say this. This is my phrase. Lo and behold,
Yeah, lo and behold.
lo and behold, she comment in the comment section that she had to have surgery on this Wednesday. Matter of fact, which was yesterday. This happened Sunday, which was yesterday. And I called her the Tuesday night, and she told me she's been having major problems with her digestive system, and she needed surgery. The surgery that they was about to do was in the area of dealing with fibroids and stuff like that. And so that is why that when you mention about the signals and what the doctor said, a lot of people don't understand. We all are connected.
Yes.
And so just like the body, when the brain sends the signal, see, now Dad is dealing with a situation where the source of where the signals for every part of the body to function, now it has to be retrained so that the other part that his ears can hear. And so that's the same thing when we're all universally connected. And so people think we're so special or profound when we're able to see things or tell them things that by the natural mind we should not even know that. But because of us being connected to the same source and we are one, the signal we're hearing, we're now transmitting that signal to that person so that that person can be healed or function according to their design.
Yeah. And in Dad's case, and I hope you guys are staying with us in what we're talking about, but in the case of Dad, the implication from the doctor yesterday was that he was receiving so much communication from the non-physical world that that discernment is necessary to know whether it's something he's actually hearing in the physical or something he's picking up from that non-physical world. And in Dad's case, he's in that mode. I don't mean talk to you like you're not here. Talk about you like you're not here. But he stays in that mode, and so it's and he doesn't realize he's in that mode most of the time. That's just his norm. And so a lot of times that's why you'll see Dad, he'll watch a lot of TV, he'll play music, he'll do things that are what we consider non-spiritual, because he has to stay grounded. And that discernment, and like he said yesterday when he was talking to the doctor, he said, I don't know if he's here in this physical world or if he's crossed over. He couldn't tell. So that world is more real actually to him than this one.
Wow, that is interesting. And so that's giving everyone more clarity. Again, because I get this is stated to me a lot. You know, I'm always out there in the nays. Do I ever come back? Home? And that means I'm out there all the time. I'm out there in another real
your senses, or your I call it your spidey senses, just out like this. And one of the things he taught years ago when we did the prophetic school is that the physical senses are interfaced with your spiritual senses. And so that means if there are times when you'll see and you'll think you're seeing with your physical eyes, you'll be actually seeing with your spiritual eyes. And so it's interface. So that means the information can come through any gate. And so really you don't have to categorize yourself as a particular kind of prophet or particular, because the intuition can come whatever way is necessary. And so, I mean, and I don't know if I'm explaining that right or not, but that's just based on how I have interpreted all of this living with him for 53 years. So,
so you just answered another question.
Go ahead.
But see that, and I'm pretty much what I'm doing. I'm kind of putting stuff out there right now because I've been with y'all for a long time, and so I pretty much, like I said, I'm an offspring of y'all ministry, and I really, because this has been a conversation with so many people, and not so much church. And I think I shared this with y'all. I find myself in the barbershop having these conversations with people. I'm getting phone calls,
Yeah.
and it's not the normal conversation that we would have.
Right.
And again, it's because I really believe that you guys are on the cutting edge and pioneers of this era or age that we're in, of people waking to
Yeah.
know that there's much more than what we've been exposed to. That even when we talk about God, God is even greater and beyond what we have even presented in institutionalized religion. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
um,
And I have, and I'm going to be very transparent. My, and I'm moving beyond concepts, but I'm going to say it like this so everyone will understand what I'm trying to relate to them. My concept of God has completely changed. Uh, in my early Christian days and prior to that, I thought of God as a being that was supernatural, that would intervene and was concerned about every physical thing that we did and didn't do. Uh, One that had opinions about what we did and didn't do, that was watching over everything. And so now my concept, or how I see or how I feel about the term God, is now that is interfaced with us and is living through and by us. And that is what God is. As laws of the universe, we are living by laws of the universe that were put in place by divine intelligence, which we would call God or the universe. And so we then, as God beings in these bodies, are learning how to operate within these laws, and even finding higher laws that will transcend these physical laws, which is God power. So that's, I want, and I don't know if that makes sense, but that's now what I feel and sense when I think of God.
mhm.
So a lot of times I'll go out in the yard and at night to let baby girl do her thing at final before we go to bed, and I look up into the sky, and if the stars are shining or whatever, and I look up and I feel God. I feel God, but I don't feel God as a separate person or entity. I don't feel God as a joyous feeling. I feel God. I just feel God as my awareness. And
Exactly.
then I have often said this. I said, I don't know what you are. I can't define what you are, but I know whatever that is, I am the same.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
my whole understanding of what God is has totally shifted. Now, that may not resonate with a lot of Christians because they still see God as a separate being sitting up on a throne somewhere, getting ready to crack a whip, and determined to make sure you stay in line. And if you don't stay in line, you're going to be cursed for the rest of your life. Some people still are in that mode and understanding of what God is, and that is not, I know that's not what God is, but some of them believe that. And if they believe that, that's how it responds to them.
Exactly. Now it's funny that you said that, Mom, because a lot of people, and I'm gonna throw a word out in a minute, because I know a lot of people are not saying it when they're around institutionalized religion or sacred gatherings or whatever. But when I talk to these individuals individually, and this is always what is presented to me, a lot of believers will actually say in a private conversation, either with you or with me or with someone else, there got to be more to this than
Yes,
what I've
yes,
heard them say it over and over again. There is a
yes.
knowing inside every individual that
Mhm,
is more to this than what we've been
mhm,
exposed to and what
mhm.
we've been experiencing.
Definitely,
It's like
definitely.
what y'all taught many years ago about the inner witness. There is that person, that true identity that say, no, what you're being exposed to is much, much more.
Much more.
And so even in the ministry or the time with Jesus, where Christ took on the form of Jesus, I'll say it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because see, a lot of
Good.
people
Good.
understand the difference. And Paul, in his writings, he showed the difference, because in the Gospels is Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Paul started writing, he switched the whole thing.
Sit around. Yeah.
Christ
Christ
Jesus.
Jesus. Yes.
And there's a reason for that. And so Jesus, in his form, he was considered a heretic.
Yeah.
A heretic. And so when we present that word in Christian circles or companies or whatever, we see that word heretic as a negative word or a condemning word. But
Yes.
the true meaning of the word heretic says this: it is a professed believer, which means that person actually believed that there is a super deity or whatever, something greater than all of us. All right.
Mm-hmm.
It's a professed believer who maintains religious opinions that are contrary to those accepted by his or her church, or reject doctrines that are prescribed by their church to them. All right. And so they go against the conformed attitudes and the doctrines and principles that have been presented to them. And so Jesus himself was considered an heretic.
Yes. Yes.
And that's
Yes.
what people understand, to be considered a heretic, or one that is, they say that's heresy. They welcome to the club.
Exactly. And until you are actually looked at as a heretic, you haven't been a thinker. I want to say you haven't been using your own thinking ability. We should be thinking for ourselves when we do that. And I'm not talking about the monkey mind where it's just constantly chattering. I'm talking about to actually look at things and think about them on your own without referring to what everyone else has said and everyone else has preached or taught and whatever their experiences are, because every experience is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
Every experience is subjective because it's based on that person's entire makeup.
Exactly.
It's custom made for that person. So we can't build our entire life and beliefs on what is subjective. And I said this years ago when we used to have ministry school, and we talked about the will of God. And there was this thing before that was kind of going around in the churches that was saying, when you're not in the will of God, but thinking that the will of God was set in stone. But there were two types of the will of God if you go back in the confines of religion. And that is the subjective will of God and the objective will of God. The objective will of God is focused on a particular object, focused on a particular purpose, focused on a particular thing that has to be. So it will not change. But then the subjective will of God is subject to change.
Exactly.
Most of us don't realize that God can tell you and move you into a position and it be subjective. That means it's not permanent.
Exactly.
It will change. And that doesn't mean God has left or God is saying you're no longer good for that. It was subject to change from the beginning.
Exactly.
But we didn't know that. So we think it's an objective. And so we think God put me in this position and it's permanent. And that's not so. That's not so.
That's it.
Anyway, I could go on and on. I got to shut up because I know Dad's got some things to share. And I want to acknowledge Linda, what she says. She says, Rupert, which is Rupert Spira, by the way, spiritual teacher, non-dual teacher, says the brain is what consciousness looks like from a second person perspective. Yeah. The universe is what God looks like from a second person perspective. Yeah.
Miss Green said something.
Yeah, amazing. And she said something.
Yes,
You want to go back to what she said?
Yeah.
She had, yes, Tony. Antoinette says, I go by Tony as well. So she says, can you turn a hearing aid up and down? This one I can't. You can, the audiologist can, But in his case, this hearing aid doesn't go up or down, but he can switch modes on it.
Because
there can be mode.
She set it at a frequency that would be out of the normal range of sound. So that's
but yet comfortable enough for him to be able to tolerate.
You have to stay in this sound long enough to where it will
retrain the brain.
Retrain it. So I could tell when I took it out when I got ready to go to bed, I didn't want to take it out.
I know, because you were doing so well with it.
And I took it out. Then when I put it back in this morning, I had to start all over again.
Because evidently the brain went
when I
back
put it back in, I was hearing things that it was loud. I mean, I could hear the wind blowing through the vents. I could hear I could hear your thoughts if I was close to
But see, I've always heard the wind going through the vents. So
I heard even the ticking on the motor on the refrigerator.
Yeah.
I could almost hear a spigot dripping water. And when if it's too loud, like sometimes once in a while y'all were talking, it was too loud.
Because we get excited and I'd start talking really loud.
One or two words would be sharp, and I have to back out. And there's nothing I can do with it now. I just have one.
Yeah.
And
but in response to Antoinette, when she asked about, can you turn it up and down?
I do have some.
He's not turning it up or down, but he can switch modes. There's a music mode. There's a speech mode, I think it is. Yeah. It has several different modes.
This one doesn't have anything like that on it. It's set that a certain sound, and if by the time I go back, she may work on this. She may stay on this. I'm not sure. But if I have to get a new one, that's up. They call it advanced hearing aid. It may cost a couple $1,000. It could be $1,000.
But
like that.
What I noticed when he wore it all day yesterday after she put it in, he was fine. But then overnight, after he took it out, the brain went back to struggling to get the signals. So now it's like he's got to get it in there again and get started again.
I could still hear good after I took it out. I woke up this morning, but it was nothing like having it in. So
my point, though, is that the brain hasn't yet been trained. It's getting there, but it's not there yet.
Now I like that because my mom, and I shared this with y'all before, my mom wears a hearing aid, but she's been using it for when she sleeps at night, because when she's sleeping at night, there is a sound that she constantly hear all night long that keeps her awake. And so they gave her a hearing aid that would help her muffle that sound. So that's another training of the brain again.
It is.
She would not hear that at night, so she can sleep and rest.
Was one of the other things that the lady said in yesterday, the doctor said, was that this particular hearing aid has a different tip on it. The one he had prior to her putting this one on would let in outside noise. This one lets less of that noise in.
Say that part again. Let what now?
It would let in more of the outside noise.
Now
but this one doesn't let in as much of the outside noise. Yeah.
So in the realm of the unseen, there are many signals that is coming.
Linda want to know if we have a Motown mode.
Miss Linda, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Linda, our Chrysler 300 is a 2013. It's a Motown.
It's a Motown
series. Yeah.
I miss mine.
It's got piano seats in
it. Yeah.
When you sit down on the music, go up through your butt.
And believe it or not, the bass is strong in it.
Yeah, it is
very strong in it. Yeah. So yes, it is a Motown mode.
if you're sitting in the seat, it's got heated seats. And them seats will sing music up through your box.
Oh, we will not. Go ahead, Pastor Norman. I'm sorry we interrupted you.
But I was saying, when you made the statement about letting the sounds come in, that is also something that really happens to all of us in the unseen dimension.
Yeah.
Once again, that there are a lot of signals that is coming, but it's what we're allowing or what we're trying to discern and decipher and so forth. And then sometimes we could get those signals crossed up.
Well, you know, if when we're actually aware and present, you are not easily startled. So it's when we go unconscious into the being lost in thought that we're startled by outside stimuli. So we our practice of staying present in the now is very important, because it actually is easier to navigate through this earthly life and not be disturbed if you remain in the present moment. That's what causes a lot of people to have car accidents, because they're in the car, but their mind is somewhere else. Exactly. But if you can stay in the car and remain as the driver, you will have fewer accidents because you're more alert, and there won't be a lot of surprises.
Exactly.
Here's
That's good.
One of the things that happened yesterday, and she didn't mention it, but she will remember now when I say it. Your hearing affects your touch. Your hearing affects your smell. But the main thing that
your sight, because you mentioned that.
In my sight, it started clearing up to where I could see things clearer. And let me share this with you right quick, all of you. I feel like you need to hear this, but if you've had enough experiences or the download of experiencing out-of-body experiences, whether in the body or out, what Paul said in the book, I've had those experiences, and let me share with you the full impact of that experience. That's why I tell everybody you need to investigate into out-of-body travel, and that simply because it is not occultic as people say it is in the church. Right. They fail to understand that all through the Bible, men and women had that experience. Paul had the experience, and Jesus himself, like somebody said, I don't want to talk to familiar spirits. Well, I said, well, then you need to leave God alone and stop messing with the Holy Spirit and stop messing with those things that are spiritually discerned, because that automatically will put you out of your body, even though it seemed. I heard one girl tell me one time, so that's of the devil. Well, I didn't mess with it because, and another thing I was going to say, your senses of your spirit self, your eternal self, overlaps into the physical gates. And when I was studying how to hear God's voice, I had to learn how to move my consciousness around to different gates. So what I used to train them in the classes, I would tell them, touch your toe, touch your knee, touch your elbow, touch your nose, and touch your ears. And they would do that. That's consciousness moving. You move it. And then you would tell us to do it. Close your eyes and do not move your hand
without touching, without touching.
Touch your feet.
Use it without
touch your heels, touch your nose. You can go anywhere you want to, and in certain parts of your body. And that's the clue to operating in the miraculous. Now, here's another thing.
See, like right now, wherever you are, you can leave the room and go in another room without even going in there with your physical body.
Exactly. And Dad also gave it a description concerning dealing with the theory or the occurrences of people who have missing limbs. They call it the phantom, arms of, they feel like they still got their arm. They can feel it, sense it, touch things, and so forth. And so, again, it's tapping into that.
Why do I feel you're an angel going up some steps in your house, and he's looking at the structure of the step? Your house couldn't be close to the ground the way it's made. If I put that together, but I saw him go up the step, and he stopped, and he backed up, and he looked at the step and see, I'm wondering that. I'm trying to pick up, why is he looking at your step? It has something to do with the way they're made, 3 steps, 2 steps, whatever it is. But I see the steps, and he's examining, like he's saying something. I feel this.
That's a kinesthetic.
I
Again.
feel that he's trying to tighten up something on the steps, and I also feel maybe I need to call the man, get these steps fixed or redone, or something underneath these steps is not quite right, and it's about time for a lot of other stuff to be done. But these steps are really. I also want to put a balance up there, but I can't keep my balance when I get ready to go up the steps or something like that. That's what I feel. I don't know what that means, but I just feel it.
So you're talking to me?
Yeah.
Talking to me? And so again, here we go. Dad has never been where I currently stay. Y'all never been.
Right.
No, I don't know where you live.
And you absolutely tapped in. You're accurate in what you just described. They are now, I have 3, the front door, the back door, and then I have a sliding door where steps come, and they all need to be redone. And so there is a gentleman that started the process of redoing my steps.
There was a show that came on, I think it was this week, that I watch a lot, and that's New Amsterdam. I don't know if you guys are familiar.
Yes, I love that show.
There's a lady who's a female doctor who is deaf on that show.
Oh, yeah.
And she had, in this particular episode, she had carpal tunnel and in both hands, and it was very painful. But because she's a surgeon, she didn't want to stop and have the surgery for herself because it was her. She said the reason she didn't want to have the surgery was because that was her only way of communicating with the outside world, using her hands to do sign language. So in the case, I said that to say this, when Dad was not hearing, before she put this hearing aid in and reprogrammed it to where he could be comfortable with it, to retrain his brain, he expressed to me before that he felt closed in, and like it was secluded in a bubble. So when he actually he was secluded in a world of silence and inner noise.
Wow.
And so when she put the hearing aid in his ear yesterday, he said his eyes cleared up. Everything was brighter. And so we don't realize how the mind can, that physical infirmity was forcing him to live in a place where his mind had gone dim.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I ask you something? Is there anywhere that you might look and see after I say this to you? I remember seeing a big old Hornets Nest one time on where we lived before we moved over here. And it's amazing how they make that cone.
Yeah.
Look like it's made out of paper.
Yes, actually, yeah, wood. It is paper.
Yeah, it looks like paper. I saw you looking somewhere, and some walls of bees that started a nest. And around, it's big. It'll get big if you're not careful. But I see them starting a nest, and this is in the present moment that I see it.
Well, you accurate in that as well. Just recently, few weeks ago, we noticed actually because we was traveling, remember, so much, and again we on the road again. But we came home, and my wife discovered that in between the window and the outside window and the indoor window, there was hornets or wasps that had built a big old nest while we were traveling back and forth there. So so you did see that.
Let me tell you, I was in Fort Payne, Alabama, and I was ministering at one of the houses that we was eating dinner, and one of those hornets stung me right here in my chest, right here. The shock or the sting of that thing was the impact it was so strong, it shocked my nervous system and threw me over into a a virus flu-like feeling, like I was chilled and shaking. And the girl there at the house went and got some snuff,
Mm-hmm.
tobacco.
Mhm.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's
It's
wrong. That's wrong.
Clorox.
Wrong.
Clorox.
Wrong. I was wrong. I'm thinking about what the remedy that we used to use
Mhm.
for
But
that.
she got Clorox.
Yeah, she got Clorox.
Yeah.
She took that Clorox, put on something, and dabbed it in that thing to kill that stinger. That's I found out how to do that. You take Clorox, it'll pull all that stuff out.
Oh yeah.
But
You use,
anyway,
use Clorox almost for any and
yeah.
everything almost.
You'll have to be really. I want to say this to the path walkers, the pathless path walkers. I've investigated into those who had awakened, and I've been around those somewhat through literature that found out union with Christ and oneness, no separation. Some of these guys had evangelical tents that they did miracles tents, and when they found out about the oneness with God, it changed them from a lot of things they did under the tent, but they did not stop the function of the spirit in the miraculous and the supernatural healing miracles. That's one thing I never understood about the enlightenment ones that do that. It's like we get caught up in that so much that other side of the Lord does not come out. And I'm not pointing a finger of judgment or anything. I'm investigating into that because there's somewhere in there where it has to what's called conjoin itself. It's a part of the life of the spirit being. It's the part of the life of the non-duality areas. And I noticed they never say anything about that because some of them, maybe in the course, it said they might talk about the ego, but you cannot let the ego interfere with the flow of that energy that you run across as being your eternal essence. The eternal essence is there, but there's something else missing that I've noticed, and I can tell in the voice and the statements that a lot of the pathfinders, when they're talking, I can perceive that that's an area that's not discussed much.
Right.
But it is maybe it's for me, maybe it's not.
And I think because we're so attuned to not allowing the ego to have first place and not allowing that ego to run rampant.
Yeah.
A lot of times we block the flow for fear of being
now,
egoic.
Bill Free's wife talk about it.
Yes, she does.
Yes,
Lisa Natola, she does talk about it a lot.
But it's nothing that you have to just go out and work on it to make it do that.
I wanted to address something that Gwen brought up, and she says most sounds are created for warnings, sirens, fire alarms, emergency TV alerts. Sometimes they are for testing only, and sometimes they are real. Same as false alarms that are sent to stifle us with false fear. And I wanted to say this because of what she put up. If you go back to a child or infant, firstborn, they are very rarely startled, no matter what sound comes, because they have not yet associated that sound with anything. So they can hear a fire alarm, they can hear a car horn, they can hear emergency TV responses, they can hear any of the things that Gwen has mentioned and more, and not be startled unless the parent or person who is a guardian has taken that child and secluded it from sounds. To make sure that it doesn't wake up when they hear it sound. If you seclude that child and prevent it from hearing those sounds, whenever that child is asleep and that sound happens, it will be startled and wake up. But those children that fall asleep while those sounds are going on, never startled. Because they have no association. Those sounds have no association. To them, it's just a sound.
And it's good that you said that, because not only our granddaughter Shannon, not Shannon, Shay, Shannon's daughter, when she was born, and then with the time of testing, when they test the baby's hearing and stuff like that, they was kind of concerned for a while. The physician was, because the sounds, they were making sounds, and she was not reacting to the sounds whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely right. Only for them later on, like you said, after a period of time, then she began to react to the sounds, because they thought she might have not been hearing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And stuff. But you're absolutely right. Because just like the situation when, as soon as you take a child, because they got to remember that child is in fluid all that time, for all that long period of time, that as soon as that child is born, if you throw that child into water or pool, that child
not
startled whatsoever.
Yeah. So it's in our innocence, in our absoluteness, when we're first born, we're closer to the realm of oneness. And we're actually in the realm of oneness, and we're just sponges soaking up information. But so an alarm would not startle me, because I haven't associated that alarm with anything dangerous. So that's, and when it comes to us as an adult, we have been conditioned. It's like when you're riding in your car and the siren comes up behind you, the first thing you think, if it's a police car, oh, they're coming to get me. If it's an ambulance, I need to pull over, because get out of the way. So it's always an association that causes us to have these different emotions.
That is so good. So dealing with the condition itself, it actually functions based off of outside stimuli that causes it to react or not to react in a certain way. And basically, we've been trained to act a certain way.
Exactly. We've been conditioned that way. Yes.
All our lives, we've been trained to act a certain way.
Yes.
Did Gwen say anything to you about going out to eat tonight?
No, she might be thinking about it. I'm not sure. She's downstairs with the grandchild.
Yeah, she's looking at us. She
Yeah.
But I saw the energy and presence of something. You eating a lot of leftovers, right? No, you're not at home though.
Not at home now.
So so you might, I see it now. I forgot you were there, but I kept seeing you going somewhere to eat. But anyway, one of the things that is,
and see, he stays in that mode, and that's why the audiologist said to him, there's a need for discernment, because a lot of the activity or communication that's coming to him is not really coming from the external things.
So we've been talking about using the theme, living in an atmosphere of change, but this is a whole different shift, because I get kind of criticized some of the things, like with Dad or whatever. Like I said, people say I'm always in the nays. How do you living in, what's the word I want to say, living in what word we want to put to that, Mom?
Living between two worlds.
Living in a atmosphere of what?
He's living between two worlds.
Two worlds. Yeah. So how
consciously living between two worlds? Most of us are unconscious.
How do we successfully live, maintain, be successful in living between two worlds?
Now, when you say,
example, my kids, and this is funny if they watch it, my kids always say, Dad, because you mentioned it earlier about Dad watch a lot of, and I do. I watch a lot of movies, a lot of different things, but it's not really entertainment to me. It's like I'm gathering information. And so when we would go to movies and my kids would go, okay, Dad, the first thing, what revelation you got out of this movie and so forth? What insight did you get out of it and so forth? And that's what I do.
Yeah. And the truth is, we get revelation out of everything.
Exactly.
And absolutely get revelation out of everything. Get revelation out of a bird chirping. I mean, whatever. But living between the two worlds, and did we cut you off? Living between the two worlds requires that you know the difference between fantasy and reality.
Mhm.
Because and I don't know if fantasy is the word, the you must know the difference between what is non-physical and what is physical. And at some point, the balance of knowing you're still in the physical and not getting spiritually obsessed with the non-physical. Does that make sense?
Now, I like that. I like the last statement that you made about not becoming obsessed.
Spiritually obsessed.
Because
Spiritually obsessed.
I can actually say there was a time in my life where might say that I became very obsessed with that
Mhm,
dimension, that realm,
mhm,
to the
mhm,
point
mhm.
that reality this reality made really I had no interest in it. I
Yeah.
found myself day
Yeah.
in, day out, just researching stuff,
Yeah.
dealing with the other dimension. And see, of course, and I share this with you guys, and even on the broadcast, we understand that what's real to us may not be the reality of God.
Mhm, mhm.
And so in being able to function between the two worlds, that is absolutely correct. Because sometimes we can become very obsessed
Mhm,
with this other world
mhm,
and not be able to function to in this world where people think you just lost your everlasting mind, you
mhm,
are a nutcase. And matter of fact, there may be a lot of people that that is going through what we call mental challenges, or maybe even in a psych ward or whatever, that is
mhm.
having that battle between two worlds.
Yeah, and I don't know why we're in this direction, but it's okay. Those of us who've been in Christianity, in particularly in evangelical Christianity, where we've lived by what we call the voice of God,
Mhm.
when when our when our awareness begins to expand beyond that world of Christian doctrines and beliefs, there is a possibility of people becoming mentally disturbed. And the reason for that is because now all of the things they've lived their life based on now are shaken.
Mm,
And,
that's
and their
good.
so their foundation is unstable. And a lot of them cannot make the shift. They begin to question themselves and not know how to, some of them don't even know how to pray anymore, because they feel like I prayed like this all these years. Now, how do I pray when I see God as myself? How do I pray? So this is where a lot of mental disturbance comes in, where people have what I call cognitive dissonance, and they can't reconcile the truth that they are now living with the truth that they used to live by. But it doesn't mean that there's an either or, because
Exactly.
it is not, you don't have to be monochromatic, meaning you don't have to do it one way or the other way. Whatever way feels right to you at the moment is okay. God
Mhm.
meets you where you are.
You just gave the answer, Mom, to what is really happening to the whole world right now. Literally, when you made the statement about shaking the very everything that we built. I mean, I'm talking about around the world. I'm not even talking about
Mhm, mhm,
Christianity.
mhm.
I'm not even talking about religion. I'm talking about the governments,
Yeah.
systems. Everything is being shaken right now. And so our very foundations of what we believe, our ideology, is
Mhm,
now being shaken, and we are being disturbed. Just like you said, they don't know
yes.
how to react. We don't know how to respond at
Mhm,
all, and
mhm,
that's all the violence and everything that's going on, and so forth. There's a shaking going on.
mhm, mhm. You wanted to
Wow.
say something, Dad?
No, I was just thinking about something. Go ahead, y'all go ahead.
So the mental disturbance that comes up in a lot of Christians who've been in the evangelical circles is now there is this freedom from God being a punisher or punitive God. There's this freedom from God being a hard taskmaster. There's this freedom, and so now how do I live with my liberty? How do I conduct myself in my liberty? And this is what we were talking about on Sunday with the embodiment. Now, everything I know to be true has to be embodied. I have to take it into the world as myself. I have to take this into the world, and I can't make it spiritual. What's the word I'm looking? I can't make it woo woo spiritual.
Right,
I can't
exactly.
make it spooky spiritual.
Exciting.
It's got to be practical. It's got to be what I can put into motion. It's got to be what I can actually walk out. And so as I go into the world with this mindset that everything that I am inside is God. Not so much feeling like I'm Almighty God, but everything I am inside has always been God. Then I look at life differently. So how I see life now is what's going to really change people. It's not so much me trying to change them by talking, or me praying to an external God, trying to change them to fit my mold. It's gonna be them watching me as we watched Jesus as an example. We become now the avatar as Jesus was the avatar.
Oh man, don't you gonna make, and we about to come to it, and you about to make me scream and run in this hotel. but it is funny because when you said that, and that's been the scriptures that I've been using here recently. And I want to read this out of the Amplified version, but it's 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 17 and 18. It says, "Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty, emancipation from bondage, and true freedom." And you just talked about that. We've been so confined that we don't even know how to actually live with this freedom that
we don't.
are coming to.
And a lot of us are afraid of ourselves because we don't know what we're going to do when we have this kind of freedom. We're afraid we're going to mess up for real.
Exactly.
Because now I'm free. If I'm free to take a drink if I want to drink. But do I want to drink, or am I trying to just go against all of my religious conditioning?
Exactly. Trying to be rebellious or whatever.
So I had all these do's and don'ts. These do's and don'ts been just hovering over me like a cloud. And so now the do's and the don'ts are removed. What do I base my morality on? What do I base my desires on?
Exactly.
So it's a whole new way of living. And some people really can't understand how to live like that.
Exactly. And so Paul further goes on and says, and this will help someone else, help someone out. And it said, "And we all with unveiled face, continually seeing as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are progressively being transformed into his image from one degree of glory to even more glory, which comes from the Lord who is the Spirit." And so, like you said, with the freedom, we don't even understand that we are literally being exposed. We are being unveiled. You know, we always talk about time of exposure. We always talking about something like a scandal is going to be exposed, or someone going to be exposed a negative way. But no, with unveiled faces, now we're seeing the true expression of who we are. And now we are progressively becoming more aware of the fact of, he's in us, us in him, as him, just oneness. And so that's when we talk about that freedom and that liberty. Like you said, it's like, what did the young people say? When you're freed, is like all chains are loose or something other like that. Go with it, and no judgments, no condemning or convicting. And that's what has happened. We've been so confined to now, like a prisoner who's been locked up for years, and then they're free, and they don't even know how to survive any longer with their freedom.
That's true. And so there's a scripture that says the love of God constrains us. that means my morality, he was saying his morality at that point was not based on a fear of what God would do to them, or their fear of hell, or their fear of punishment. It wasn't fear of judgment. Their morality came from a place of, I love God.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I love people. So I won't do harm to myself, and I won't do harm to others. That's where the morality, true morality, comes from. But majority of us, and I say this being very transparent, when we first came into the understanding of how free we are, we used to go to a restaurant every Sunday after church, of course, and we would order Ruby Tuesdays. I mean Ruby, what do you call them? Let's drink it, Ruby Tuesday. Ruby relaxers.
Ruby relaxer.
Yeah, Ruby relaxers. We were we would order Ruby relaxers because we knew we could do it. And so we did it. And after a while, it lost its flair because it was just a period of just seeing how free we are. And so now we could have that if we wanted. My sweetheart here collects liquors, but we don't drink it. We just have it in the case because he likes the bottles and he likes what it looks like. So
I love the tiny bottles as well.
yeah, so you get caught up as an ego in your freedom at first. Some of us go too far in our freedoms because we know we can. But then at some point it should lose its luster, because you realize you don't have to prove anything anymore. Exactly. There's nothing else to prove. I'm free, so I can do it. So you're no longer being free as an ego, but you're free from the ego.
Mom, I know we're out of time, but I want to piggyback off of something you said about morality and why, because I thought about this all this week, actually, and in my thinking, I pretty much would have to say that I now understand what has been the foundation of institutionalized religion, especially when it comes to Christianity. Most people who profess to become saved, born again, or come into the church, if they will be honest, many of us chose that path because we didn't want to go to hell.
That's exactly right.
It wasn't about us loving God.
That's
we
right.
didn't want to go to hell. And you made that statement. Well, if we really love God and love people, then we would never, ever think about doing any harm or doing something
to ourselves or to them. Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
So most people who have taken that path, pretty much, I'm going to church because I don't want to go to hell, because I was taught that, if I don't go to church and I don't become a Christian, I'm going to hell. And then, in the South, one of the big things that you needed to become a member of a church. And it was funny. They would say this, older people would say this, boy, you better become a member of a church because when you die, who's going to funeralize you? I think you remember that.
Yeah. And you realize, and I know you do, there are two aspects of church. When we say church, that's why often I will categorize it as the evangelical church, because what you and I are familiar with is the evangelical church. But I remember as a little girl, I had 3 different experiences of church. My grandmother on my mom's side and grandfather went to a Baptist church. My great aunt, who I used to spend summers with, she went to a Presbyterian church. My grandmother on my dad's side, they were all holy sanctified, holy rollers. So I had all 3 environments. Those in the Presbyterian and Baptist church were not thinking about, I'm going to hell and that's why I'm going to church. They went to church because it was the appropriate thing to do if you're an outstanding citizen, an upstanding citizen. And so it meant you did it because it was the thing to do. They weren't interested so much in hearing the voice of God or being able to get miracles and all. They didn't really even get into that. Some of you preached against it. Even though spirit was there and inspiration was there, that was not their mode. But in the evangelical, holy roller church, Pentecostal, apostolic, all of that, it was all about the presence of God right here, right now, doing miracles and speaking to me. That's the whole thing. So that's totally two different environments. And those of us in the evangelical arena, we became spiritually obsessed, mostly with a God that is punishing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this subject could go on forever, but
that's so good, so good, so good.
Antoinette says this. She said, "So true. You can't do everything you're big enough to do." And the truth is, Antoinette, you can. But when you do it, there are consequences, not so much from God. You're going to face whatever consequences come with that. If you desire to continue to drink, say, for instance, because you got the freedom to do it, if there's no moderate consumption,
moderation,
if you can't do it in moderation, eventually your body's going to be broken down. You're going to have some problems in your functioning in life situations. It's going to cause some problems in so to avoid the overuse or the misuse or the abuse of it. Remember, Paul said, everything is lawful unto me. I can do whatever I want, but I will not be brought under the power of any.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's where morality is. Don't let anything overpower you, even if it's a honey bun.
We say honey bun.
And a honey bun's pretty good. I succumbed to a honey bun plenty of times.
Krispy Kreme donut.
Yeah, a donut.
We just said donut.
Yeah.
Krispy Kreme.
We're all faced with, are we going to be under the power of anything?
Exactly. And that's so true, because we always have to remember, again, when it comes to our Father, he's not in the business of manipulating or controlling people. And like you said, dealing with the environment of the evangelicals, it was all about control and manipulating. That's even very dominant now.
I tell you how I know God don't give a hoot about what we do most of the times. When I was in that Baptist church with my grandmother, all of the deacons and the men was outside on the front porch smoking.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. I remember those days.
They were outside smoking
in the church
yard. They were outside smoking while the ones in the Pentecostal Holiness Church was trying to get to the altar to repent of everything they knew they had done. Exactly. So God is not a punisher. That's the thing. Exactly. And it does throw you into a place of absolute liberty. But are you going to be free as an ego, or are you going to be free from the ego?
Exactly.
So
that's good.
We've talked a whole bunch. Dad hadn't got a word in edgewise. I think he said
Yeah. I'm okay. I'm just listening to you.
Yeah, he's a little quiet today. He's gonna be okay.
He's making adjustments. That's all.
Yep. That's it. That's it. We love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hanging in there with us the whole time. And we'll be back again next Thursday at 12:30 for another good old conversation.
Tune in with us Sunday morning at 10.
Sunday morning at 10. When for you, Pastor Norman?
11 a.m.
11 a.m. We'll be back live and in color. See you guys next time.
Okay. Have a safe day.